I agreed to pick up the check for my brother's rehearsal dinner, $3,000, no big deal. But when I arrived, he gestured toward a bar stool and said, "You can sit there, we've got real family at the main table." I ate without a word. When the server brought the check, I stood up, smiled, and said, "Actually, good luck with that." Then I walked out. What if the people you called family, the ones you constantly sacrificed for, showed you exactly where you stood, and it wasn't even at the table you paid for? This is the story of how a single bar stool, a forgotten invoice, and a lifetime of being the dependable one finally pushed me to my breaking point. And trust me, the fallout was nothing short of spectacular. The air that night felt heavy, not with humidity, but with an unspoken tension, almost a premonition. It was a dinner invitation I should have instinctively known to decline, a seemingly innocent gesture that would unravel years of carefully maintained peace. My name's Ethan, I'm 34, and if you'd told me a year ago that a bar stool would be the thing that shattered whatever thin illusion of family I had left, I probably would have just laughed. I've never been the dramatic type, always tried to keep things civil, especially when it came to my younger brother, Caleb. But sometimes it's not one big betrayal that breaks you. It's 1,000 tiny cuts that finally hit an artery. Growing up, Caleb and I weren't particularly close, but we weren't enemies either. Just typical sibling stuff. He broke my Game Boy, I deleted his save files. He told Mom I skipped school, I ratted him out for sneaking out. Nothing crazy, just kid-level antics. The real gap started widening after college. I worked my way through a state university, balancing scholarships and part-time jobs. Caleb, the golden boy, got a full ride from Mom and Dad to a private school out east. No strings attached, just we believe in his potential. You'd think that might spark some resentment in me. And maybe, quietly, it did. But I never said anything. What was the point? After graduation, I built my own IT consulting business from scratch. It took years to get off the ground, with months I could barely pay rent. Meanwhile, Caleb landed a job right out of school at a flashy marketing firm, thanks to one of Dad's old golf buddies. Within 6 months, he was posting Instagram pics from ski resorts and rooftop brunches with captions like, "Work hard, play harder." Again, I didn't say anything. Let him have his fun. Our parents always had this way of brushing me aside while shining the spotlight on him. "You're so independent," they'd say. "You never needed much from us." Caleb, on the other hand, was sensitive, creative, the dreamer. So, when he needed money to cover rent one summer because he'd blown his paycheck in Vegas, of course, Mom wired it over without hesitation. But when I asked for a small loan to help cover my business taxes one year, I got a lecture about financial responsibility and learning from my mistakes. Still, I didn't fight it. I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. I kept the peace. Every family dinner, every birthday, every holiday, I showed up. I smiled. I asked Caleb about his work, even though he never asked about mine. I bought thoughtful gifts while he often showed up empty-handed. I helped Dad move his tools one summer, spent 4 hours sorting bolts. Caleb showed up after everything was done, took a few selfies with the toolbox, and posted them like he'd done the heavy lifting. When Caleb announced he was marrying Sophia, a polished, Pinterest-perfect PR consultant with a laugh like wind chimes, I genuinely tried to be happy for him. I even offered to help. I figured, maybe, just maybe, this could be a fresh start. A chance to truly connect. So, when Caleb called and asked if I'd cover the rehearsal dinner as my contribution, I didn't hesitate. "Of course," I said. "Just send me the details." He told me it would be at this rustic Italian place in the city, one of Sophia's favorites. I looked it up. $1,300 for a group dinner wasn't pocket change, but my business had done well that quarter, and I figured it was worth it. It was family. It was Caleb. I didn't hear much from him for weeks after I agreed to foot the bill. No updates, no thank you text. I assumed I'd get an invite with the time and place. Maybe a note of appreciation. Instead, 2 days before the event, I got a forwarded email with the subject line Rehearsal Dinner Final Headcount. No message from Caleb, just a forwarded email from Sophia's assistant. The guest list was long. Sophia had invited what looked like half her firm. And I noticed something strange. My name was tucked at the bottom under miscellaneous/extended family. I brushed it off. Maybe it's just a formatting thing. Then came the night of the dinner. I arrived early, dressed in a navy blazer and button-up. Not too formal, but presentable. The restaurant was stunning. Exposed brick, flickering candlelight, soft jazz humming. The hostess led me to the private dining area. A long table stretched across the room, elegantly set with name cards and centerpieces. And there, near the front, were my parents, Caleb, Sophia, and her family, already seated, already laughing. It felt like walking into a scene I didn't quite belong in. I scanned the table for my name. Nothing. Then I saw Caleb near the bar. I walked over, smiling. Gave him a quick one-armed hug. "Hey man, place looks great." He looked me up and down, then nodded. Yeah, Sophia really wanted something classy. I nodded, waiting for some kind of acknowledgement. "Thanks for covering it. Glad you're here." Something. But instead, he just sipped his drink and motioned with his chin. "Your seat's over there." I turned. A bar stool near the wall. A small cocktail table with a single setting. No centerpiece, no name card. Just isolation. I blinked. Is there a reason I'm not at the table? Caleb raised an eyebrow, like I just asked if the sky was blue. "It's just, Sophia's family is sitting with us. Real family. We had to make room for her uncles and the wedding planner's assistant." He trailed off, like that explained everything. Real family. That word echoed in my chest like a slap. I looked at my parents across the room. Neither of them looked up. Not even a wave. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually, I sat on that bar stool. I watched as the toasts began. I watched as the waiter poured everyone else a round of champagne and skipped me entirely. I listened to Sophia's father say something about how blessed they were to have everyone here. And I chewed my chicken piccata in silence. I didn't even know what to feel. Hurt? Embarrassed? Angry? Mostly, I just felt hollow. Then dessert came. Someone passed out slices of tiramisu and started clapping for the couple. The mood was buzzing. And just when I thought it was finally over, the waiter approached me with a smile. "Hi there. Are you the one handling the check for the group tonight?" I looked up. And that's when something in me shifted. I didn't say anything right away. The waiter stood there, pen poised over his little black pad, smiling politely like this was just another normal moment in a normal dinner. I looked back toward the long table where my brother and his fiancée were laughing about something her cousin said. My parents were seated beside them, deep in conversation with Sophia's aunt. No one looked my way. No one even glanced. And suddenly, the air around me felt different. Colder. Thinner. Like I wasn't part of this room at all. I looked back at the waiter and gave a polite nod. "Yeah, I'll take care of it." He smiled again and walked off to get the bill. But something inside me was already shifting. A quiet sort of storm gathering in my chest. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Not in that moment. It was something deeper, heavier. I sat there, listening to the faint clink of glasses, watching my own reflection shimmer in the polished marble bar. And in that moment, a question started forming in the back of my mind: why do I keep showing up for people who never show up for me? I sat through the rest of that dinner like a ghost, silent, invisible. I picked at the tiramisu. I watched the speeches and claps. Caleb stood up and gave some long-winded toast about love being an adventure and family being the anchor. I actually laughed out loud at that, just once, a quiet snort into my glass. No one noticed. Or if they did, they didn't care. The next morning, I woke up with a hollow chest and a splitting headache. Not from alcohol, I'd barely touched the wine. It was something else. A mental hangover. The kind you get after spending too much time around people who make you feel small. I paced around my apartment, making coffee I didn't even want. Scrolling through messages that weren't there. No thank you text. No check-in. No, hey, great seeing you last night. Nothing. Then that afternoon, I got a message from Sophia. It wasn't a thank you either. It was a reminder to confirm the final payment for the rehearsal dinner. The tone was chipper and professional, like she was talking to a caterer. No mention of the Barstool. No mention of being shoved to the margins like a stranger at my own brother's event. I stared at her message for a full minute before typing out a response, then deleting it, then typing it again, then deleting it. Eventually, I just closed the app and went for a walk. I needed space. But space didn't help. Not really, because 2 days later, we had the wedding rehearsal itself, and I had to show up. I was one of the groomsmen. Yeah. After all that, I still had a role to play. I know how that sounds. Spineless. Pathetic, even. But it's hard to walk away when you've spent your whole life convincing yourself that if you just try harder, if you just stay quiet and helpful and generous, maybe they'll finally see you. The rehearsal was held at the venue. A modern glass chapel overlooking a lake. It was beautiful. Crisp white chairs, floating candles, little glass bowls, rows of tulips arranged like a magazine cover. But none of it felt real to me. I kept thinking about that bar stool. About Caleb not even flinching when he told me to sit over there. About the way my parents didn't blink. During the walkthrough, Sophia handed out little gift bags to her bridesmaids, custom robes, jewelry, monogrammed tumblers, the whole Pinterest package. Caleb handed out matching cufflinks to the groomsmen. Except he didn't give me a set. He didn't even look my way. I was standing right there, second in line behind his best man, watching him hand out those velvet boxes like Oprah, one by one. When he was done, he looked up and just went, "Oh, sorry, man. I only ordered 5. Didn't know you were confirmed." Confirmed? Like I was a name on a spreadsheet. Like I wasn't the guy who literally paid for the dinner 2 nights ago. Like I wasn't his brother. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. What was I even supposed to say? Hey, remember me? The one who raised your goldfish when you went to camp? The one who bought you a used Xbox for your graduation because mom said she couldn't afford one, and then magically bought you a car 3 weeks later? Yeah. No, that wasn't the moment. I stayed quiet again. After rehearsal, we gathered at Sophia's parents' house for drinks and light snacks. It was supposed to be casual bonding. The house was massive. Gated driveway, indoor fountain, the works. Everyone mingled on the patio. I found a corner near the fire pit and stuck to my drink. I didn't know most of the guests, and the ones I did know didn't really seem to know me. Eventually, my dad wandered over with a half-full glass of scotch. He sat down beside me, sighing like he'd just finished mowing a lawn. "You all right?" he asked. I shrugged. "Sure." He looked around, then leaned in a bit. "I know things have been a little tense lately. Caleb's got a lot on his plate. Sophia's family is intense, but it's his big day. Just try to go with the flow." All right? Go with the flow. That phrase rattled around in my skull like a loose screw. I'd been going with the flow for 3 decades. What did it get me? A bar stool. No cufflinks. And now a lecture about how hard it must be for Caleb. I nodded. Sure, Dad. I'm good. He gave my knee a quick pat, like he was proud of me, then stood and walked off before I could say anything else. That night, I went home and sat in the dark. Didn't even turn on the lights. I just sat there, thinking about my childhood, about how many birthdays I spent watching Caleb blow out the bigger cake. About the time I scored second place in the state science fair, and Mom told me, "That's great, but Caleb's art piece is going to be displayed at the district board meeting." About the way they always framed me as the one who didn't need praise. Maybe that was true once. But not anymore. The next morning was the wedding. I arrived early, earlier than everyone else. In fact, I brought my own cufflinks, plain silver ones I'd gotten years ago from an old client as a thank you gift. I sat in the dressing room and waited as the other groomsmen filed in, laughing and high-fiving and sipping from those little bottles of bourbon someone had brought. Caleb walked in last. He looked sharp, black tux, hair slicked back, smile like a toothpaste commercial. He barely looked at me, just clapped his best man on the back, and started taking photos with the photographer. At one point, Sophia came in, saw me sitting off to the side, and said, "Oh, Ethan, could you help grab the extra chairs from the back? We need 6 more for the cocktail hour." I blinked. "I'm one of the groomsmen." She tilted her head, like I'd just said I was the valet. "Yeah, but you're not in the early photos, so it's fine, please." Then she walked off before I could answer. I looked at Caleb. He didn't say a word. Didn't even shrug. Just kept posing. That was the moment. The real one. Not the bar stool, not the cufflinks, not even the chairs. It was the way he didn't care. Not a flicker of concern on his face. Not even a twitch of discomfort. Like my humiliation was routine, expected, normal. I got up, walked to the back room, and grabbed those damn chairs one by one. And as I carried the last one out to the patio, sweat starting to stain the collar of my shirt, I caught a glimpse of my mother standing by the bar, chatting with Sophia's mother. I heard her say, "Oh, yes. Caleb's always been the star of the family. Ethan's sweet, but he's more of a behind-the-scenes kind of guy." I froze. Just for a second. Then I set the chair down, walked back into the dressing room, and sat back down, my heart thumping like a war drum. Something inside me was burning now. Slow. Steady. Not rage. Not yet. Something older, deeper. I checked my phone. Still no message from Caleb. No thanks for handling the dinner. No acknowledgement. And then, 15 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to begin, the wedding coordinator walked into the room and handed Caleb the final invoice for the rehearsal dinner. His eyes scanned it. Then they flicked up to me. And just like that, everything changed. He stared at the invoice like it was written in a foreign language. His eyebrows pinched together, his mouth opened just slightly, this faint little twitch like he might try to laugh it off, but nothing came out. He just looked over at me, holding the paper like a piece of evidence in a courtroom, and said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Hey, didn't you say you were covering this?" My mouth went dry. Every groomsman in that room went quiet, except for the best man, who let out an awkward chuckle and sipped his drink like he wanted to disappear into the wallpaper. The photographer kept snapping pictures, pretending not to notice. The stylist in the corner suddenly got very busy with her brush kit. And I sat there, cufflinks on, tie perfectly adjusted, staring up at my brother. There it was. The moment he turned what should have been a private conversation into a public performance. One final act of control before the vows. One last jab to remind everyone that I was the helpful one, the wallet, the assistant, not the brother. Not the equal. I stood up slowly, walked toward him. My legs were steady, but my hands were cold. I reached for the invoice, took it gently from his hand, and glanced at the total, $3,472.19. Tax, gratuity, and a few last-minute upgrades, apparently. I folded the paper neatly in half, tucked it into my inside jacket pocket, looked him in the eye, and said, "Good luck with that." Then I turned and walked out of the room. No yelling. No scene. Just calm, steady footsteps down a carpeted hallway, past the chapel entrance, past the guests beginning to trickle in, past the floral arch that cost more than a month of my rent. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I stepped outside into the cold air and let it go all at once. My car was parked 3 blocks away. I walked the whole distance without looking back. I didn't even attend the wedding. No one stopped me. No one texted. No one called. I half expected someone, my mom, my dad, even Caleb, to come storming out, demanding I come back, asking how I could do that on his big day. But silence followed me home. A thick, suffocating silence that trailed me all the way to my apartment and settled into my living room like smoke. And then it hit me. This was it. This was the moment I finally stopped trying. It felt awful. And freeing. At first, I just sat there on my couch, staring at the same spot on the wall for what felt like hours. The ceremony was probably happening while I was still in my dress shoes, still buttoned up like I hadn't left. I kept thinking, what now? What comes after the moment you burn the bridge you spent your whole life pretending was still worth crossing? The next day, I got the first text. It was from Sophia. "Hi Ethan. Not sure what happened yesterday, but we really need you to take care of the dinner bill. It's your responsibility. Please don't put us in a tough spot. No, are you okay?" No acknowledgement that I walked out of my own brother's wedding. Just the bill. I didn't respond. A few hours later, a follow-up. "Ethan, this is really unprofessional. Caleb and I are extremely hurt. You promised you'd handle this." Then one from my mom, "We need to talk. Caleb is very upset. Why would you do this to him?" To him. Not one message asking why I left. Not one word asking what happened. Just assumption and guilt. All wrapped in a tone of maternal disappointment I knew too well. I turned off my phone. The silence was better. I didn't go to the brunch the next morning. I didn't check social media. I didn't reach out to anyone in the family. I went back to work. I met with clients. I drank my coffee in peace. I cleaned my kitchen. Finally fixed the leaky faucet and threw out the cheap cufflink box I'd been keeping for no reason at all. For 3 weeks, I didn't hear from anyone. Not even once. And the crazy thing was, life got better. Not in some dramatic movie-like way, just less noise, less tension. I didn't realize how much of my brain had been occupied with trying to earn their approval until that space suddenly cleared up. It was like uninstalling software you didn't realize was running in the background. I started sleeping better. I started walking more, just around the block after dinner. Sometimes with a podcast, sometimes just in silence. The air felt better. I started eating like a human again instead of living off coffee and deadlines. And slowly, something new started to bloom in that quiet space. Me. One morning, I looked around my apartment and realized I wanted more. Not more stuff, not more people, just more life. I'd spent so much time being a support beam for everyone else's success that I'd never really looked at what I could build for myself. So, I started. I upgraded my website. Invested in some new gear for the business. Started reaching out to potential partners I'd always been too timid to contact. I took on 3 new clients in a month. I hired a freelance designer to rebrand my logo. And for the first time in years, I felt proud when I handed someone my business card. I didn't tell anyone in my family. They didn't ask, which honestly made it easier. Then one Friday night, about a month and a half later, I was sitting at a wine bar with a client-turned-friend, just sipping a glass of something I couldn't pronounce. When she asked me, "You always talk about your work. What about your family? And I paused. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't anger that stopped me. It was clarity. I didn't want to retell the old story. I didn't want to explain the barstool or the invoice or the chairs, because those things weren't the point anymore. The point was, I wasn't living under their rules anymore. I just shrugged and said, "It's complicated." She smiled. "Aren't they all?" We changed the subject. That night, I went home and checked my phone for the first time in days. There were a few unread messages from Caleb. The last one, dated 2 weeks ago, read, "So, I guess we're just not talking now." Cool. Real mature, Ethan. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. But then, 2 months after the wedding, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Then curiosity got the better of me, and I listened. It was Sophia. Her voice was tight, measured, but underneath the polite phrasing was tension, thinly veiled panic. "Hi Ethan, I'm really sorry to bother you, but we're trying to sort out some financial issues with the venue, and the dinner invoice still hasn't been resolved. It's now in collections. We thought you had taken care of it. If there's been a miscommunication, can we please clear it up?" I stared at the wall, phone still in my hand. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Not out of spite. Not out of revenge. Out of freedom. Because I wasn't their safety net anymore. I wasn't their backup plan. I wasn't their behind-the-scenes guy. I was just Ethan. And I was doing fine without them. But that's not where this ends. Because just when I thought they'd finally backed off, just when I thought I could quietly live my life and let them carry the weight of their own mess, they found a new way to drag me back in. Only this time, they made one fatal mistake. They tried to use me again. And this time, I was ready. It was early spring when the next message came. I remember it clearly because I was out of town for a long weekend. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet lakeside cabin rental about 2 hours north. It was the kind of trip I never used to let myself take. Always too busy trying to prove I was reliable, available, indispensable. But now I'd learned the value of peace, solitude, unapologetic rest. The notification buzzed through while I was sitting on the porch, wrapped in a hoodie, sipping black coffee as birds trilled somewhere in the trees. I almost ignored it. I almost left it for later. But I didn't. And when I opened it, I saw a name I hadn't thought about in months. My mother. "Hey Ethan, Caleb mentioned you might be free this summer. Your cousin Liam is getting married in July and the whole family's going. Would be great to have you there. We're renting a big house together. Can you pitch in for the deposit?" I stared at the screen. Deposit? Pitch in? Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been exiled to a bar stool at my own brother's rehearsal dinner. Like I hadn't walked out of his wedding and been ghosted for weeks, only to receive a voicemail asking me to pay for the dinner they all pretended I never paid for in the first place. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I pulled out an old black leather notebook from my bag, the kind I used to use in the early days of my business when I still scribbled down client notes by hand, and flipped to a clean page. I wrote 3 words at the top, what they owe. And then I began to list. Not just money, Mom's broken promises, Dad's silence, Caleb's humiliation games, the manipulation, the gaslighting, the decades of being behind the scenes. But I didn't stop there. I made a second list, titled, What I've Built. And this list was longer. A thriving consulting business. A growing list of clients. My independence. My peace. My strength. My clarity. My self-worth. My control. That was the word that stuck with me. Control. Because for the first time in my life, I had it. And they didn't even know it yet. That was the spark. The setup didn't come all at once. It came in layers, tiny, deliberate choices that lined up like dominoes. I didn't want some messy emotional outburst. That was Caleb's territory. No. I wanted precision. Timing. Something that would shift the balance permanently. I started with information. Over the next few weeks, I combed through every email, invoice, and message related to the rehearsal dinner. I still had the forwarded event coordination email from Sophia's assistant, the auto-confirmation from the restaurant booking software, and even a follow-up from the manager thanking me for confirming the final headcount and payment responsibility, all tied to my business account. Good. Then I contacted the restaurant directly. A friendly call, nothing aggressive. I explained I'd been listed as the payment contact but had walked out before finalizing the bill. The manager, Mark, remembered the night immediately. Said it was one of their biggest bookings that month. "I remember your brother," he said. "Was he the groom? Tall, dark hair, bit loud?" "Yeah," I replied. "Right. Well, you never paid." So, the invoice got bounced to collections. That's standard after 60 days. "Who's handling the collections?" He gave me the name of the agency. I thanked him and hung up. Then I called the agency. A few polite questions, and I found out that Caleb had tried to dispute the charge, claiming it wasn't his responsibility. He'd given my name as the original financial contact, but without a signed agreement or credit card on file, the collection agency had hit a wall. It was currently stalled. That gave me time. And leverage. The next piece came from a former colleague of mine, Marcus, a quietly brilliant cybersecurity consultant I'd worked with years ago. We'd kept in touch, grabbing the occasional drink or sending memes back and forth. I messaged him one night. "Hey man, quick question. Know anything about reputation management firms?" He sent back a thinking emoji. "Depends. You looking to protect something or expose something?" "Both," I replied. That Friday, we grabbed dinner. I explained everything, the Barstool, the bill, the voicemail, the new ask for a deposit. Marcus listened, nodding slowly, stirring his drink without taking a sip. "Classic narcissistic triangulation," he muttered. "I just want them to stop acting like I owe them something," I said. "But I want a moment. Not a meltdown, just a moment that makes them see." Marcus smirked. "You want a long fuse, not a firecracker?" Exactly. We started building something. While Marcus pulled a few strings with a contact at a data indexing firm, nothing illegal, just public record scanning, I began gathering social media screenshots. Sophia had been posting wedding photos for weeks. One in particular caught my eye, a wide shot of the rehearsal dinner table, the caption reading, "Couldn't have asked for a better night with our favorite people, 2 hearts, #RealFamily." And there it was again, that phrase. Real family. She had no idea how badly those 2 words burned through every bridge they had with me. But I was done being scorched. It was time to return the heat. I took a screenshot, archived the post, saved it to a cloud folder titled July. I didn't know exactly what the endgame looked like yet, but I knew when it would happen, at the cousin's wedding. Liam and I had never been especially close, but he was one of the few people in the extended family who had never made me feel like a footnote. He was the kind of guy who shook your hand properly and remembered your dog's name. When I got the official invite to his wedding, I almost declined. Then I saw the venue, a massive historic estate with gardens and a reception hall known for its glass atrium. The kind of place with valet parking, a jazz trio, and signature cocktails named after the bride and groom. But more importantly, it was exactly the kind of place my family would go all out for. I RSVP'd yes. Then I emailed the estate coordinator and asked a few quiet questions about seating arrangements. I framed it as a family member wanting to ensure elderly guests wouldn't be too far from exits. The coordinator, a woman named Trisha, was helpful and detail-oriented. I casually asked about the family house rental, too. "Oh yes," she said. "Your parents reserved the South Wing house. Sleeps 15, I believe. Full payment pending." I thanked her. And I smiled. Because now I had a window. See, over the years, my family had grown used to using my generosity as a fallback. It started small, spotting someone for gas money, helping with Caleb's books, buying Dad a new cordless drill after his broke. Then it grew, a few hundred for a surprise birthday cake for Mom, a few thousand for Caleb's moving expenses. The rehearsal dinner. It was always presented like an opportunity for me to show up. But this time, I wouldn't show up as the wallet. I'd show up as the mirror. The one they tried to avoid looking into for years. So, I waited. June came and went. Then, 10 days before Liam's wedding, I got a group email from my mom. "Hi, family. Just a quick reminder that we're finalizing the shared house rental for the wedding weekend. We're splitting the cost between all of us. It comes out to $860 each for the 4 nights. Please send your portion via bank transfer to me by Friday. Thank you." So excited to see everyone. I stared at it. $860. After everything. I didn't respond. 3 days later, another message. "Hi, Ethan. I didn't see your transfer come through yet. Can you confirm you're still staying with us? We're trying to avoid paying extra at the last minute." Still staying with us? As if we were a we? As if there hadn't been a fracture so deep it cracked the foundation of our entire relationship. That was when I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about accountability. And they were going to learn what it felt like when the one person they thought would never hold them accountable suddenly did. It happened on a Saturday in July. Clear skies, soft breeze, not a cloud in sight. The kind of wedding day people dream about. I arrived early, not to help set up, not to carry chairs, not to be useful. I just wanted time to walk the grounds, take in the place, and center myself before it all went down. The estate was stunning, winding paths through manicured gardens, fountains humming quietly. White linen draped across archways like silk clouds. A string quartet was warming up near the entrance to the glass atrium where the reception would take place. Guests were beginning to arrive in waves, dressed in navy suits and pastel dresses, all smiles and small talk. I wore a tailored charcoal gray suit and brought a guest, Jessica, a friend from work who understood the assignment. She knew the whole story, knew the names, knew exactly when to stay close, and when to step aside. She'd even practiced the smile I told her to wear when Sophia or my mother inevitably walked up with that passive-aggressive glint in their eyes. We were seated in the 4th row during the ceremony, close enough to be visible, far enough to stay unnoticed, for now. Caleb and Sophia sat in the front, of course. Caleb in his sunglasses, looking smug and perfectly curated for a family photo op. Mom and Dad flanked him. They hadn't seen me yet. Not really. And when they did, they offered only the faintest wave, as if I were a distant cousin, not a son, not a brother. Just another name on the guest list. Typical. The ceremony passed without issue. Liam and his bride exchanged vows, kissed, and walked off to applause. Everyone clapped. I did too. Quietly. Genuinely. They deserved their day. But it wasn't over. The reception started with cocktail hour. Tiny hors d'oeuvres and custom drinks on the lawn. I kept my distance, nursing a whiskey and soda while Jessica chatted with a couple from out of town. I watched Caleb from across the garden. Watched the way he worked the crowd, making people laugh, patting shoulders, dropping his perfect little sound bites. Marriage is a team sport, man. Oh, Sophia keeps me in line, don't worry. This suit? Custom. Got it from a guy downtown. I'll send you his number. He was in his element. But that was about to change. At 5:30 sharp, the reception doors opened. We were guided into the glass atrium. High ceilings, crystal chandeliers, light bouncing off every surface. Long banquet tables lined with floral runners. Personalized name cards. A printed program tucked into every napkin fold. The house rental group, my parents, Caleb, Sophia, and a collection of aunts and uncles, had their own reserved table near the center. I saw it right away. A place card with Ethan on it, seated at the end next to the emergency exit. I didn't walk toward it. Instead, I led Jessica to a different table, one closer to the front near the dance floor with a small gold sign that said, VIP reserved. One of the waiters approached as I sat down. "Mr. Ethan?" he asked, lowering his voice. I nodded. "Miss Tricia says everything is in place. Just let us know when to proceed." "Thank you," I said, offering a small smile. "Give it 10 minutes." He nodded and walked off. Jessica leaned toward me. "You ready?" I sipped my drink. "Been ready since I got the text asking for $860. The lights dimmed slightly. Music played. The MC took the mic and began welcoming everyone, moving swiftly into the dinner portion. People settled into their seats. Waiters began delivering appetizers. That's when Caleb spotted me. I watched it unfold in real time. His head turned. He saw me at the VIP table. At first, there was confusion, then recognition, then confusion again. His smile wavered. Sophia leaned over and said something. His eyes didn't leave mine. I raised my glass, tapped it once, and looked away. Now, for context, here's what they didn't know. About 3 weeks before the wedding, after I confirmed with the estate coordinator that my parents' group reservation was still pending payment, I made my move. I reserved the South Wing house, paid in full under my business name, quietly, privately. It wasn't hard. The estate had no idea I was related to the people previously listed. I used a corporate booking request through my business account and arranged for 6 custom keycards. When Tricia asked about guest names, I told her we'd finalize them closer to the date. I asked if I could designate someone to manage check-in on my behalf since I might be traveling internationally at the time. She said, of course. I gave her Marcus's name. Then I waited. 1 week before the wedding, my mother sent another group message. "Hey all, Ethan's been quiet. Just confirming you're still good for the house. If not, we'll need to find another person to cover your share." I replied, already taken care of. She responded with a heart emoji. That was all she wrote. So, imagine her surprise when she and the rest of the house group arrived at the estate the day before the wedding, tired and sweaty from the drive, only to be told by Tricia that the South Wing had already been checked into under a different name, and that their reservation had been cancelled due to non-payment. They had no rooms. No backup plan. And it was high season. I hadn't been there to see it, but Marcus told me everything. The sputtering. The calls. The flailing attempts to find a last-minute rental anywhere within 20 miles. The moment Sophia realized she'd have to split a room with my mother. And Caleb would be sleeping on a pull-out sofa in the bridal suite with Sophia's sister and her newborn. Delicious. And now, sitting at that table, they were trying to figure out how I had ended up at the VIP table sipping aged whiskey, perfectly composed. But I wasn't done. 10 minutes later, after appetizers were cleared and people were loosening their ties, the MC tapped the mic again. "Before we move on to toasts, we have a quick housekeeping announcement," he said. "One of our guests, Mr. Ethan Hayes, has generously covered tonight's bar tab in honor of the newlyweds." A murmur spread through the room. I stood up slowly, took the mic with a smile, and spoke into it calmly. "Just wanted to say congratulations to Liam and Elise. You two deserve the best. No one else could have pulled off a day this beautiful." And I figured, why not let everyone toast properly? Laughter. Cheers. Applause. I handed the mic back, sat down. Across the room, Caleb's face was stone. Sophia looked like she'd bitten into a lemon. But I wasn't smiling for them. I was smiling for me. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't proving anything. I wasn't trying to be included. I wasn't showing up to be recognized. I was showing up because I wanted to, and because I could. I didn't need a name card. I didn't need their seat at the table. I'd built my own. After the reception, Caleb finally approached me. Waited until most guests were outside lining up for sparklers. His voice was low, clipped. You really couldn't just let it go, huh? I sipped the last of my drink. Let what go? You know what? I leaned in slightly. You mean the Barstool? The unpaid dinner? The voicemail from Sophia? Or maybe the part where Mom called me behind the scenes like I'm a stagehand in my own life? He swallowed. It wasn't meant like that. I nodded. Doesn't matter. I'm done being your footnote. He looked away, jaw tight. So, this was revenge. No, I said, standing up. This was a reminder of what? I smiled. That I'm not the one who needs me anymore. And I left. Didn't wait for a response. Didn't look back. Jessica was already by the door, holding my jacket. We walked out under the stars, past sparklers and laughter, past people who didn't know the history, didn't know what had been built or burned or buried. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. I didn't need their apology. I didn't need closure. Because I had something better. I had peace. And I had the final word. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, or if you've had to burn a bridge to finally build your own path, I want to hear your story. What was your breaking point? Let me know in the comments below.